Prime Minister, I'd like to kick off by asking you to walk us through how you see the election of Donald Trump playing out in this part of the world, and specifically what it means for your government.
Well, thank you for this opportunity. Obviously, we congratulate the United States for having a successful election. This is a decision for the American people to decide what kind of a government they want. But obviously, as you said, a decision made in the United States have an effect on the globe and definitely on our region as well. We've had an experience with the previous government of President Trump. And this time also, we are hoping that the US administration is going to maintain good relations with the region, with Iraq, and in particular with the Kurdistan region that's been a very credible partner with the United States in the fight against terrorism and also in promoting peace and developing the shared values and principles that we have with each other. It's a little premature to decide how it will play out. We have to wait until the whole cabinet is picked and decided, but we definitely have friends among people that we hear are being considered to be in the next government.
So you're seeing encouraging signs so far?
Well, I would like to be optimistic, yes.
In your mind, when you take a step back and think about what happens next, obviously it's difficult to foresee the next couple of years, but President-elect Trump has said that he will end all the conflicts happening right now in the world, and he specifically mentioned that in the Middle East and those in Europe. Do you believe that that's an achievable goal?
Well, I hope that there will be peaceful solutions to every ongoing conflict and war. However that's achieved, I believe it will serve the people of those countries that are suffering from the ongoing wars now. But I hope that these decisions are made in consultation with the parties involved, that the interests of the people are going to be taken into account. I don't know how this is going to be done. We hear that through force, peace can be promoted. Maybe that's the policy of this new administration. We have to wait and see. But in any case, we do believe that peace is going to be better than war anyway.
Are you worried about the possibility that Baghdad will be drawn into this conflict? We've already seen overt and behind the closed doors pressure coming from Israel towards Baghdad.
Of course we are worried and we are concerned about what's happening. We don't want Iraq to be dragged into this war. We don't think that this is an Iraqi war. We believe that if Iraq can play a constructive, positive role in promoting peace and bringing sides together, that's good. But to add fuel to the fire and to make things more complicated, to expand the war and conflict, it's not going to be in the best interest of the Iraqi people. And I hope that the Iraqi government will look at the interest of the Iraqi people more than the interest of anyone else.
President-elect Trump has made no secret of his support for Israel and its government, particularly its Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu, a man who has just been sanctioned by the International Criminal Court. Do you believe that will be a barrier to peace?
Well, I don't know, but I believe that what any step towards promoting peace must be supported, and anything that distracts peace or any initiative should be reconsidered. So I don't know exactly how this is going to play out, but I do believe that the players must come to some agreement that there must be different ways of reaching a sustainable solution to the ongoing conflicts.
Walk me through this one. There are many schools of thought on this, but to your mind, how difficult is it going to be for Iraq, for the Iraqi people, and frankly for the stability of the region, if President-elect Trump decides to withdraw US troops from Iraq?
Well, look, the US troops were in Iraq based on the invitation from the Iraqi government. And there was a reason. There was ISIS, terrorism, that was threatening the security of the region and actually the security of the whole world. We have that first experience here in Kurdistan. And our Peshmergas were fighting ISIS, and we wanted the coalition forces, the Americans, to come to our help and assist us, and they thankfully did. There was a coalition of forces that came to support Iraq, and within Iraq, Kurdistan. Now, if the overall assessment of terrorism has changed, and if Iraq believes that terrorism has come to an end, therefore we don't need American troops here, or we need to end the mission of the coalition forces. That's a different situation. And we may have different ideas, to be frank with you. We don't think that terrorism has come to an end. We think that still ISIS is intact, and they have active members. They are active in different parts of, not only in Iraq, but in the region, elsewhere in the world. And we need to have that global coalition to fight terrorism. Now, in terms of organizing or reviewing the relationship of Iraq with the coalition forces, can be different than what's been said. If the mission is no longer needed because Iraq feels it's stronger today and it can face the challenges and control the security situation in the country, that doesn't mean that the relationship between Iraq and the United States will come to an end. So ending the coalition forces or the coalition mission doesn't mean the end of US-Iraqi relationship, even military relationship. So we hope that for as long as Iraq can manage its relationship with all of its partners, whether it's the United States, UK, France, Germany, Italy, any other European country, on bilateral levels, to maintain the good relations where Iraq can benefit from the friendship that is developed with all these partners, we believe that there is a way that can manage and perhaps be less risky in terms of looking at whether or not the security situation is going to be affected by the departure of the coalition forces.
Would it surprise you if US troops were to stay outside of a coalition, perhaps, in some arrangement?
Whether this would surprise me? No.
No.
No. Look, US is staying in many other countries in the region. Not only in Iraq, but in many other Middle Eastern countries. We have US forces. So it's very normal for the US forces to stay in Iraq and have bilateral relations with Baghdad.
When you take a step back and look at what's happened over the last several years, the chaos that's ensued under, frankly, the leadership of the Biden administration in Washington, many people would say the catalyst for President Putin's invasion of Ukraine and what's been happening in Gaza was US inaction and US failure with the withdrawal from Afghanistan. In your mind, has that set a precedent for US activity in the region?
Can you repeat your question?
In your mind, did the disastrous withdrawal by the Biden administration from Afghanistan set a precedent for US activity in this region?
Well, I think any unilateral decision is not going to be the best decision, in my view. The U.S. was invited by the Iraqis, and any departure has to be mutually agreed. The mechanism, the timing, and the way that it needs to depart. But any unilateral decisions, while we have so many pressing issues, is going to cause new problems. And we've had this experience in 2011. In 2011, when the U.S. pulled out their forces, even then, we didn't think that was the best decision, and we anticipated that U.S. will come back, but at a higher cost, which was the case, because the vacuum left after the U.S. pulled out their troops was filled by ISIS and other terrorist organizations, and U.S. had to come back once again So I hope that there are good decisions and well-calculated decisions. If U.S. wants to pull out, we need to look at what would be the alternative and how those vacuums created behind are going to be filled. We don't want to create another problem.
What's the best case scenario in your mind for your government from a Trump administration? What would you like to see them do?
In Kurdistan region? Well, we have very good relations with the United States. We want to continue having good relations. We want to continue having security cooperation. We want to continue and develop economic relations with the United States. The more development in the region means more stability, and more economic stability leads to more political stability and definitely to more security. So more U.S. engagement in the region, I believe, is going to help the region.
Talk to me about what's happening today with the oil law. What is the status of that legislation?
Iraq doesn't have an oil law. We have a law that belongs to the Saddam's era, which is designed for a central government. It doesn't help a federal system. We have a federal country today. We have a federal system. That centralized law is not helpful in organizing relations between Baghdad and Erbil. And unfortunately, after Baghdad decided to abolish all the previous laws, there is this law still in place, which is shocking. And we need to replace that with a new law. There was a draft back in 2007, but unfortunately was never passed through the parliament. We still believe that we need to have a modern law that is good for a federal system. And once we have that, I believe we can overcome many of the existing problems between Baghdad and Erbil.
Walk us through how much the failure to export is hurting your government. And I'm talking to the tune of $20 billion that you've lost so far.
Yes, almost every month we lose $1 billion. So it's over $20 billion that we've lost as a result of the export of
They're bleeding you dry.
Sorry?
They're bleeding you dry.
Well, unfortunately, this is hurting the rest of the country as well. But definitely, the biggest part of the country that's suffering is Kurdistan. Unfortunately, the losses that we have suffered are not being compensated. We see the delays in the salary payment. We see reduction in the revenues of the overall Iraqi revenues, which is not in the interest of the federal government nor in the Kurdistan region.
Yeah, Baghdad seems to characterize this shutdown of your exports as a way to assuage fears in the broader OPEC Plus group about their production concerns. And I'm talking about the fact that they want Baghdad to stick to its production numbers just like every other member of OPEC Plus is supposed to. In your mind, is that a fair assessment to put that on you?
No. Look, Iraq is producing a certain amount of oil barrels per day, and they have a quota in OPEC. But I can say that what we produce in Kurdistan is much less than what we deserve according to the percentage that Kurdistan is entitled to produce. So let's assume that Iraq is producing more than 4 million or 4.5 million barrels per day. Now the numbers have changed though. But Kurdistan is entitled to produce at least 500,000 barrels. We are producing even less than half of that. So to tell us to reduce production, it's not fair because the overall Iraqi production of oil needs to be reduced according to the quotas designed for Iraq. And it doesn't have to always come on at the cost of the production in Kurdistan.
How concerned are you by the fact that global oil production and global oil prices are frankly falling? Because that will impact your bottom line as well.
We are concerned, but let me tell you one thing. We in Kurdistan have realized that depending on oil as the only revenue for the country is always going to be problematic because the price of oil is not designed by the country. There is a global market for it. So it could go up, it could go down. When price of oil is high, then Iraq can benefit, but when it's down, it's going to affect the function of the government because the budget is not going to basically, be able to support the government's, functions. In Kurdistan, we've realized that. That's why we try to diversify our economy. We try to look at different sources of revenues to invest in agriculture, invest in different industries, invest in tourism to make sure that even if oil is no longer the only revenue or, it's not generating enough revenues for us, we have different sources of revenue. Yeah. I believe that Iraq should have done that. And we look at different parts of the world, especially the oil producers. They're using the revenues generated from oil and investing in different sectors so that to secure different sources for revenues for themselves when even oil is dried out and no longer is available. Iraq is not at that stage, and that is concerning. Mm-hmm. We are concerned about that, but we strongly encourage the federal government in Baghdad, and we certainly in Kurdistan are focusing on how we should diversify our economy to at least reduce the influence of the oil price on our economy.
There's a concern that those here in your part of the world are trucking refined product to Iran. In your mind, is that a practice that should be stopped? Because that is a country, of course, that is under international sanctions.
Well, the sanctions have been imposed, and I don't think that now there is anything legally going through Iran. So it's been stopped, after the new sanctions on the productions, not only on the oil, but on the productions has been imposed. There has been a decision not to send any of those products to Iran. So
to your knowledge, that isn't happening?
Illegally, it may be happening in some places, but not under our control.
Walk me through this. You mentioned other partners and finding other partners for investment. Obviously, the conversation earlier in the day surrounded China's influence in this part of the world, the symbiosis with the United States on multiple issues and how that's evolving and may evolve under a new administration in Washington. Does the current attitude towards China coming from Washington hurt your government in terms of investment potential?
In what sense?
Well, does it keep you from partnering with countries like China that the U.S. may have a problem with from time to time?
Look, we have good relations with the United States and with all of our Western friends, but that doesn't mean that we can't have good relations with China or any other country in the world. We have a free economy, and we are inviting anyone to come and invest in our region, and we hope that our friends would compete over who can come and invest first in Kurdistan. Yeah. But if someone doesn't want to come and invest, they shouldn't be able to stop others to come and invest.
Yeah. So a trade war with China, how does that impact you?
Well, Chinese are in Iraq and also in Kurdistan. They're already investing, and we have a law of investment, and whoever is complying and accepting our regulations and is wishing to invest in Kurdistan is welcomed.
Yeah, this has been an argument, of course, that the United Arab Emirates and Saudi Arabia and Qatar have faced as well, pressure from the United States not to partner with China on a variety of issues and technologies, for example.
To be fair, we are not being pressured to not, have investments from the Chinese by the Americans or the Western countries.
Well, how would you characterize it? Discouraged?
Well, obviously anyone would be interested in coming and investing themselves, so we encourage them to come and invest if they want to, but no one's forced us to not have relations with China if they wish to invest in our region.
Given the current state of global affairs, do you think that this will force the United States to be more pragmatic in its approach?
Well, I think they have to be, because look, Chinese are investing in the United States. Chinese are investing in Europe. Why can't they invest in our region? I mean, that's a question, right? So whenever you answer that question, I'll answer the rest of your questions.
Talk to me a bit about your relationship today with Turkey. Is that a complex relationship?
We have good relations with Turkey. We have good economic trade and relations with Turkey. We have good understanding on the security situation in the region. And we are also encouraged by the fact that Turkey is looking at different peaceful ways to sort out the problems in the region.
Yeah.
So I would characterize our relations with Turkey as good and even better.
Yeah. And Russia?
With Russia also, we have normal relations. We have Russian companies operating in Kurdistan. We have Rosneft and Gazprom Neft that are already operating in Kurdistan region and the rest of Iraq.
I want to get a sense from you of how you see the regional dynamics changing, and particularly with regards to Syria. Obviously, over the last several months, we've seen an increased number of visits between Bashar al-Assad and his partners in Saudi Arabia, his partners in UAE, things that wouldn't have happened perhaps a few years ago. And the U.S. being so tied up perhaps with other conflicts in the world and conflicts in the region, not really raising much of an eyebrow there. In your mind, are we going to see Syria reintegrated, not just regionally, but globally?
You see, when we're talking about Syria, we have to be careful about what part of Syria we're talking about. There is not one government controlling the entire territories of Syria. We have Syrian government, we have Russia, we have Iran, we have Turkey, we have the United States, we have the rest of the coalition. So we have different groups controlling different parts of the country. But if you mean the government in Damascus, we've seen that over the years, there was a maximum pressure on the government. Everybody was calling for the overthrow of the regime. And now there is, once again, reopening the channels with the government and trying to reintegrate into first to the Arab League and also to the international community. I think it depends on the cost of whatever action you take. If the decision is to overthrow the regime, you have to look at the cost of that and the meaning of what that means actually to the rest of the region and the rest of the players. And if integrating the government into the international community will bring more peace, I think that's something that I believe now many countries are looking at.
Yeah. If the Trump administration were to enact maximum pressure 2.0, for example, do you believe that would accelerate Syria's return to the international order?
I don't know about Syria, but I believe every actor has to rethink. If they want to benefit from normal relations with the United States and other players in the region, they have to perhaps revive their current policies and adopt a new policy that's acceptable, and that would go with for Syria as well, I think.
Yeah, there's a narrative in the West that Iraq is held hostage, that Baghdad is held hostage to Iran. Is that a fair assessment?
Is
that Iraq is held hostage by Iran?
Well, that's your terminology, but there is a lot of influence. Iran has a lot of influence in Iraq. That's true. Now, whether this is a decision that Iraqis have made or it's a decision that's been imposed, I think you better ask Baghdad that question. Is this something that they are happy with or not? But we definitely know that Iran is an important neighbor for Iraq, and it's normal for Iraq to have normal relations with Iran. Now, the level of influence and the nature of relations between Baghdad and Iran, I don't control that. You have to ask them.
I'm waiting for my invitation. Walk me through this one. When you think about what happens next with regards to the internal politics, and I'm talking about the regional dynamic, we've seen enormous strides for women made in Saudi Arabia, something that those of us who cover the region never thought perhaps we would see. We've seen women, of course, taking a major role in the UAE government, for example. Half of the parliament are women. And we see strides made for women here in your government as well. But it seems as if in Baghdad, things are really rolling back. And I'm talking about the possibility that children can be married off at the age of 9. Many in the international human rights community now say that this is tantamount to child rape. In your mind, is that worrying?
Yes. You know, Iraq was one of the most advanced Middle Eastern countries in terms of promoting women's rights. Unfortunately, there are factors that are affecting and influencing the rights of women in countries where poverty, injustice, illiteracy is widespread. And unfortunately, over the years, Iraq hasn't been in its best capacity. We've seen that there is a lot of illiteracy, there is a lot of women that are dropping out of college and school. Definitely this is going to affect the behavior of the society and also the women themselves, the lack of confidence, and that they don't want to participate in the community. In Kurdistan, we have, I think, in a different situation. Our culture is also different. If you look at our history, women have always had greater freedom, and they have had more rights. And over the years, we have tried to give more power to women by promoting their participation in the parliament. There are many parliamentarians that are women today, and many ministers in the cabinet that are women, and many directors and many administrators that are now women. And many women are now businesswomen, very successful businesswomen. So we're trying to give equal opportunities. I'm a little sensitive about saying women's rights because I think they have to have equal rights as men, and you need to pave the road for them.
And just to be clear, that means you would advocate for equal pay for equal work?
Yes.
Every time?
Absolutely.
Yeah. Is that something you enforce in your government?
Well, absolutely, yes.
Yeah. In your mind, what are the things that can be used in the private sector to encourage that? And I'm talking about women on boards.
Look, you need to protect everyone's rights. Let's forget women, okay? Let's talk about citizens, humans. Everyone in the country should have equal rights. There are people who are in the public sector, there are people who are in the private sector. One of the reasons why private sector in the country has been weak, because they were afraid of retirement. In the private sector, there was no law for anyone that after a few years that they would be retired and they would have pension afterwards. Now we have passed a law in Kurdistan to secure the retirement for private sector as well. This is encouraging many people to not seek the government employment or the public sector, but to look at private sector. So if you provide more opportunities for them, if you create an environment where private sector can grow, I believe that's going to take care of many of the pressing issues that we are facing today. Not only about women, but about the whole economy.
Yeah. In your mind, what is the greatest existential threat to this region today?
Wow, this is a very tough question.
I have a reputation.
I think lack of trust. I think, history has proven that when communities don't trust each other, when systems are built on imposing ideas, when stronger players are dictating and disrespecting others, when democracy means only the rule of majority without regarding the rule of minorities, that's difficult to handle, and it's difficult to create a society where everybody would be happy. You need to feel the sense of belonging, and in order to belong to a society or to a country, you need to feel that you're equal. So the lack of equality, the lack of trust, I believe, is the source of many of the problems that we have.
How do you address that lack of trust? How do you address that lack of trust?
Reverse that. Build trust and provide, equal environments and, be just. So that's exactly what's needed.
Yeah.
And if we can build trust and provide equal opportunities to everyone, I think that will take care of it.
Do you still believe the United States is a partner to trust?
The United States? Yes, I do. Because, look, I mean, United States is not just about one person or one administration. United States is a successful country based on values of democracy and principles of equality and freedom. So, yes, U.S. wouldn't be successful if it wasn't a place that was built on the right foundations. And when you have institutions that endorse these foundations, needs to be trusted.
Your Excellency, thank you so much. Thank you.